There we go. Thank you, Caleb. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the February 5th special Planning and Development Committee meeting. My name is John Hirsch, Councillor for Ward 9, South Marysburg, and I'll be chairing this meeting tonight. Tonight we are meeting at Council Chambers at Shire Hall. Members of the public who wish to speak at a Planning and Development Committee meeting are invited to register with the clerk's office in advance. These meetings are statutory public meetings as required under the Planning Act and will deal with the planning applications listed on the agenda. Tonight's agenda lists all the items before the committee for consideration. Copies of the agenda have been posted on our website. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. The recording from the meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting Live Stream tab on the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Personal information collected as a result of this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making decisions on these matters. Persons speaking at the meeting are requested to give their name for recording in the minutes. For those present here at Shire Hall Chambers, please remember to sign in using the sheet located near the media desk, which is over on that side of the hall. For those present here, all speakers' names, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes which will be available to the public. The first portion of tonight's meeting, under Section 5, Statutory Public Meetings Pursuant to the Planning Act, is to present planning applications in a public forum as detailed in staff's planning application overview. This overview does not contain a staff recommendation, and therefore no decisions will be made this evening. Each application will be presented individually, and following each presentation by the applicant, owner, or agent, the meeting will be open to the public for comments and questions. If there are no questions or concerns from anyone present, I will conclude the statutory public meeting for this item. Under Section 6, I would be asking for comments from the audience on items listed under items for consideration. This evening, however, we have no comments from the audience pre-registered, as there are no items for consideration on this agenda this evening. Members of the public who wish to provide comments at future meetings can do so by contacting clerks@pcounty.on.ca to register. And a reminder that if you participate, your name, opinion, and comment will be included in the committee meeting minutes and form part of the public record and posted to the county's website. So that will bring me to the call to order itself. This is a special meeting held at Shire Hall, Picton. The public is able to follow and participate in the meeting electronically. Members of the public who wish to provide comments can do so by contacting clerks@pcounty.on.ca to register. Just before we get to confirmation of the agenda, I would ask I believe that the Acting Director of Development Services would like to provide us with some information. Sarah.
Yes, and thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I would like to advise that item 5.3 on the agenda would not be able to proceed tonight. There was, and it came to our attention late yesterday afternoon or this morning, that the statutory notice was not posted on site as required by the Act, and so we're not able to proceed having not met those statutory notice requirements. I understand that the applicant was advised, but if there is anyone from the public, that's why I thought through you, Mr. Chair, that I could make that announcement before the agenda was confirmed.
Thank you. So the item remains on the agenda. We will be entertaining a motion to defer when we get there. So that would bring me to confirmation of the agenda. Could I have a mover and seconder to confirm the agenda? Councillor Nyman and Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That it's a Nyman panel motion that the agenda for the Special Planning and Development Committee meeting of February 5th, 2025 be confirmed.
All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Brings us to item 3, the disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Does any member of the committee have anything to declare? Seeing none, that moves us to item 4. There are no presentations. Right on to item 5, then, the statutory public meetings. Planning and Development Committee shall consider matters where a public planning meeting is required to hear applications under the Planning Act. The purpose of the statutory public meeting is to allow the committee to gather information on the applications before us, to hear those wishing to make submissions on applications, and to allow the committee to ask questions of the applicants, the public, and staff. Persons wishing to appeal decisions on planning matters may be required to demonstrate that they have made written submissions to council or oral submissions at a public meeting. Every member of the public speaking today is requested to state their name for the public record, which will form part of the meeting minutes. In the interest of time, the committee respectfully asks that you keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes. So having said that, brings us to item 5.1, which is consent to rezoning file B1124 and Z1424, Jordan Yarrow, Belleville Street, Ward 3, Wellington. Does the planner, applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak? Yes, sir. If you please come up to the microphone and give us your name.
Jordan Yarrow.
You have a maximum of 10 minutes, sir.
I mean, I don't really have a lot to say. I own a lot, 39 Belleville Street in Wellington, which is across from the fire department. Currently has a house on it. It's a pretty wide lot. It's about 92 feet wide. I'm proposing that I sever the lot, retaining about 56 for the current house and 36, those are rough numbers, I didn't write them down, to build a new house on the new lot, renovate and fix the other lot. I've been informed that I guess Wellington doesn't have any more service capacity currently for sewer and water, so I guess once this severance is complete, there'll be some sort of X that could potentially be removed in the future once capacity is given, brought to par, whatever word you want to use for it.
That's right. That's my understanding too. Anything else, or you're done? Okay. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Yarrow? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this matter? We haven't got too much of an audience tonight, so I guess not.
So through to the chair, we did have members of the public registered to speak, but it doesn't look like they're connected via Zoom, nor are they here in attendance at Shire Hall Council Chambers.
And they were aware of the time and everything? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, well, the committee has no further questions. There are no oral submissions pertaining to the planning application to be received. So I guess I can declare that the statutory public meeting on this matter has now concluded at 6:09 p.m.
Sorry, through to the chair. There are oral submissions from the applicant, so we will need a mover and seconder.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Okay, kind of a mover that the oral submissions pertaining to planning application be received for the information. Councillor Harrison? Councillor St. Jean? Do you need that read out, Madam Clerk? No.
I can read it out, that the oral submissions pertaining to planning application number B11-24 and Z14-24 be received for information.
Thank you so much. All those in favor? And that carries. And now I can declare that the statutory public meeting on this matter is concluded at 6:10 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Yarrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're done.
Thank you
You're
for
done
your time.
You're done for tonight. That brings us to item 5.2, which is official plan amendment, file number OPA-05-24, which has been municipally initiated. I understand that Mr. Portum has a presentation for us. And should I say something like, you have 10 minutes? No.
Mr. Chair, I was
Councillor Pell.
talking earlier to Councillor Grosso. He had said he was going to join us by Zoom, but, oh. He's out there. Okay, I haven't saw his picture, that's why.
Yes, and Councillor Brandon Horst is with us by Zoom as well. So Scott, you have a presentation you're going to
Yes,
provide?
we do.
Good, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, County is initiating an official plan amendment, which would be a general amendment to update the plan based on a number of things, including changes to the provincial planning statement and also some legislative changes, and then also some items that are more local needs. So on the second slide here, we've got that we're proposing official plan number 6 to the plan. Make amendments related to the PPS, which was issued in 2024, and also make amendments to the plan that changes policy related to the Planning Act and also regulations made under the Planning Act, and then make general amendments to the plan. Next slide there. More specifically, the effects of the proposed changes. There's kind of an extensive list there, but under the new PPS, we're looking to permit 2 additional dwelling units in rural areas, subject to criteria. Also, to allow settlement area boundary changes outside of a comprehensive review, but subject to change, again, as per the new PPS. Permit changes to employment areas outside of a comprehensive review, but subject to criteria set out in the new PPS. Another change would be to require the municipality to consider a buffer and or mitigation measures before identifying new employment areas in the plan. Again, requirement of the new PPS. Another item there would be to require the municipality to develop what the province is terming an agricultural system, which would be intended to protect agricultural lands, but also assets. Again, a new requirement under the new PPS. There's a couple of changes related to legislation. Under the Planning Act now, the province requires a review of the official plan 10 years after it was passed, and then every 5 years afterwards until a new official plan is adopted, which is a change from the previous requirement, which was to review it every 5 years. So it gives a little bit more time on that first review after the plan was passed. So with our plan being passed in 2021, under the Act, we're supposed to have it reviewed for an update by 2031. Another change relates to something different in the Ontario regulations related to heritage properties. So now there's a requirement that new properties designated under the Heritage Act meet 2 of the 9 criteria that were established by the province and that are detailed in the OREG. Slide 5 there. So we're looking at now some changes that are more to address local issues. So we're looking at adding a policy to recognize the approved Picton Main Street Heritage Conservation District and the new Wellington Heritage Conservation District. And that way, new development would need to comply with the requirements of those heritage conservation districts. Another change would be to amend various policies in the plan to recognize the presence of the commercial fishery, its important contributions to Prince Edward County, and provide policy direction when considering development for proposals related to the commercial fishery. Third item on this slide here is to look at expanding the west side of the Bloomfield Village boundary just slightly so that the boundary matches existing lot lines. There's a Schedule 1 attached to your package that shows that area, again on the west side of Bloomfield. And the current boundary for the village runs through a property so that approximately 2/3 of it is within the village boundary and 1/3 of it is outside of it. On slide 6 there, we've got a few other things. We're looking at updating official plan Schedule E, which is the transportation and infrastructure schedule. And that would be to identify existing and approved roads in Picton, Wellington, and Rossmore. There's an updated schedule, Schedule 2, in your package. In particular, the existing schedule just has those urban areas in a gray hatching or a gray shading. So for some reason, the Schedule E did not show the existing road network, so we're looking to add it, and as well any roads that were approved through a subdivision approval, they would be identified as well on that schedule. It won't include a road that's being considered as part of the Picton Transportation Master Plan. It won't include that. We'll also look at amending, deleting, or including some new definitions to provide clarity. And those are identified in the draft bylaw. And then also just to amend wording of various policies to ensure they are up to date and provide clarity. Things like referencing the new PPS 2024, or another one that's changed, there's several changes for, is recognizing the Heritage Committee's new name is the Built and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee. So slide 7 there. Just has that Schedule 1 that I was referencing that shows the area identified on the west side of Bloomfield. As I mentioned, the current boundary is shown with the orange shading as the boundary of the village. And the area that we're looking at including is that hatched area that's outlined in red. It includes 3 small residential lots along Loyalist Parkway at the bottom end of that map. And then at the top of that area is a portion of a property that, as I say, is 2/3 of it is already in the Bloomfield boundary. And it's a narrow strip approximately 100 meters wide that's outside of it. So we're looking at proposing that all be brought into the Bloomfield boundary as a measure to eliminate a deterrent to anyone that might want to develop that property that's already in the boundary. The next slide is just that Schedule 2 to this bylaw, which, as I say, is the Schedule E in the official plan, the transportation and infrastructure schedule. And it's kind of hard to see on this map just with the scale of it, but it shows those roads inside the gray shading for Picton, Wellington, and Rossmore. That's the presentation there.
Thank you, Scott. Just before I go to the committee for questions, would we just draw folks' attention to the text of the actual amendments being proposed can be found on the planning portal for this activity. The draft bylaw is represented there, so if anyone wants to see the actual texts, we're there. So I'll now ask the committee for any questions of Scott. Councillor Branderhorst, you're up first.
Hi, thank you, Chair. My comment, or it's not a question, it's a comment, in support of what the Ag Advisory Committee wanted, which was to not allow the urban boundary expansion, specifically because that is farmland that is being actively farmed right now. So I would like to and plan to not vote that forward in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a couple questions. So the west side of Bloomfield, not up there anymore, but the map that you had there, what land is that? Is that we're going to be redoing it? Is it Prime A?
Yes, through you, Councillor, or through you, Mr. Chairman, the property around Bloomfield, especially on that west side, is considered prime agricultural, yes.
Okay, and then the other part of that question goes to, you want to make that extend Bloomfield's limits out there. Services don't run out there, does it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I don't believe it goes that far. In fact, even to the areas, some of the areas that are within the current boundary, they don't go out that far. And so any development proposed there would need to make that slight extension of water service to provide water to any development there.
Okay, can I have a couple more? You want me to wait?
Why don't you wait? Oh, go ahead. I'll finish up.
Oh, okay, thank you. So your employment areas you had on there, I don't know what slide it was. You were talking about buffers for the employment areas. So I just, I'm not sure what slide that was. So there was that. Not sure what you're talking about for on the buffers, and then on the in our pack, in our agenda here, it says permit changes to employment areas outside of comprehensive review. So if you just explain kind of what we're doing with those. Page 5.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, under the new PPS, there are some specific requirements for all municipalities now. In terms of the industrial lands, the PPS, I don't have the wording right here, but it talks about providing a 300-meter buffer from any new industrial park or employment lands. And if you can't provide the 300-meter buffer, then you need to look at providing mitigation measures to ensure that the lands can be used for employment purposes without negatively impacting surrounding land uses. So that's a new provincial requirement. So it doesn't affect existing employment areas, but any new employment areas. So if the county were looking at identifying a new industrial park, they would have to look at either providing that buffer or mitigation measures.
Want to follow up on that point?
Sure. Thank you. So that's 300 meters from all or existing subdivisions or residential areas, as well as proposed. What could be down the road then also, is that?
Yeah, and like I say, if there's existing development in close proximity to a new industrial or new employment area, as I say, they can look at mitigation measures for things like traffic and noise and dust that might be generated from a new employment area. So you might, it wouldn't be uncommon, I wouldn't think, that you're not going to meet the 300 meters, but the mitigation measures could then be introduced to help ensure that you're not having a negative impact.
Councillor Maynard and then Councillor Pennell.
I'm going to speak to that one, and then I've got some others that we'll see what else comes up. So this is just for industrial. This isn't commercial or warehousing or any of those categories. What do they consider light industrial? Yeah.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is something else that's a little bit different. It used to be that employment areas might include commercial or institutional uses, but with a change in the in provincial policy, they're looking at that, defining it a little more. Excuse me, my voice. A little more tightly that it's industrial land. So yes, it could include manufacturing, whether it's light or heavy industrial, warehousing, those sorts of uses.
So then those are all considered industrial. The
Yes.
manufacturing, light warehousing, those are industrial uses.
Did you have another now, or you want to come back?
No, go ahead.
Okay, Councillor Pennell, you're next.
Okay, I've got a little different opinion on this whole program. As a municipality, I think it's time we started thinking out of the box. For instance, every time we expand a village or something on prime agriculture, that's agricultural land gone forever. We're looking at the possibility of perhaps running water from Wellington to Picton. If that happens, what a wonderful time to start planning for the future and look at the possibility of maybe houses along that route. They're still on the water, have their septic system, could be an industry, same if they can accommodate everything they're doing. But when we keep going back and every time let's expand into prime agriculture land, that's land lost forever. We're getting into thousands of acres in this county that agriculture is gone. And houses are not necessarily going to keep the farming community active. And not only that, for the guy that is trying to farm, as soon as we look at that, putting a subdivision there, all of a sudden, oh, my farmland's worth a lot more. I personally think we got the cart before the horse. We should actually have visions of the future. I don't see anything in that. The other thing that got me was if somebody put a house on a small lot, or doesn't matter the size of the lot, and we're saying, well, your water supply has got to come specifically from one well. Well, I got news for you. There are all kinds of houses throughout the county that don't have enough water. They'd be done out of being able to build an affordable house for themselves. But we got holding tanks. They can put in cisterns, whatever, and give you exactly the same way. So I would like to see some other ideas explored rather than, well, let's just expand into good prime agriculture because somebody thinks that's where it should be.
Scott, do you want to respond to these 2 points?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the change to the western boundary for the village of Bloomfield, staff would not be looking to expand the boundary if it was a large parcel, certainly into prime agricultural lands. Certainly that wouldn't be consistent with provincial policy. It wouldn't meet the intent of the official plan. In this case, it was a narrow strip of property, and as I mentioned, 2/3 of this property is actually already in the village boundary, and so it's slated for development. Staff looked at it, that's narrow sliver being outside the village boundary is actually a deterrent to a developer purchasing the property and developing what is already slated for development, because they would be left with this narrow strip that couldn't be included as part of the subdivision. So I understand certainly the comment. As I say, if it was a large parcel, staff would not be recommending the boundary expansion, but in this case it is a relatively minor adjustment. It's almost technical in nature. As to the other comment in regards to the policy change requiring new lots to be serviced by one well, that is certainly something that staff look for in new development. Obviously, we're aware that existing development out there quite possibly might be serviced by multiple wells or cisterns, and that's fine. It's just that if someone's creating a new lot, we want to make sure that there is an adequate water supply from one source. We don't want to see that it has to be serviced by multiple wells because perhaps the water yield from one or two wells isn't enough to service say a house on a new lot. So we're looking for the new lots just to meet that requirement that they be serviced on one. And in the future, if they do need to have a second well or a cistern, they're certainly able to do that. But when the lot is being created, we're looking to ensure that there is an adequate water supply from that one well.
Well, just coming back, if I could, Scott, for a moment to the village boundary in Bloomfield. Yeah. It's a fact that the current village boundary, as defined, goes down the middle of a lot.
Yeah, and it's not even the middle of the lot. It's like I say, two-thirds of that property is already in the village boundary. It's just that narrow strip. And like I say, ordinarily we wouldn't be, supporting changing that boundary if it was a large amount of land, but it's a relatively small section.
Okay.
Could I have one quick follow-up on that?
Follow-up, Councillor Pennell?
That to the west of Bloomfield, how many acres or hectares are we talking there?
So through you, Chairman, the area that we're looking at adding to the village of boundary is approximately 9 acres of usable land. There is a water course crossing the property, so I think the total area was around 14 acres, but it's approximately 9 that's usable.
Do you realize how much can be grown on 9 acres of land that's prime agriculture to feed our country and our county? And I think that's the thing that we got to start taking a look at.
Point taken. Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott, with regards to the potential boundary change, recommended boundary change, is that the only one in the village? The rest of the village follows current lot lines, current and established parcel lines?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, not all the village boundary follows lot lines, but this particular one was a very narrow piece that was outside of it. I think any of the others that I was looking at was significantly larger sections that were not following lot lines.
Particularly the ones north of Main Street, going out Corey Street and again, the northern area. Which is where the majority of the, I'll call it prime agricultural lands are. So this is, I understand it is just simply straightening out a line that splits the property at this point.
That's correct.
And has a very minimal impact without Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lyman, I see your hand.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. So I just want to go back. I guess I just need to understand, I guess, more than anything. So in our agenda here, it says allow settlement area boundary changes outside of a comprehensive review, and then the permit changes to employment lands outside of a comprehensive review. So just explain to us, these changes can be made without it coming to council, or like, I just need to understand what the comprehensive review and who reviews it, and how does council get involved?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. Under the former PPS, the 2020 PPS, municipalities could only expand their urban boundaries at the time of a comprehensive review, which would have been done every 5 or 10 years, depending on when the plan was originally passed. Now, if a municipality decides they would like to expand the urban boundary, the decision is still of council's. It's still an application that comes forward to council, and it's a decision at your discretion, but it can be done at any time, and that way there's some flexibility for a municipality to accommodate maybe something that comes up prior to the need for a comprehensive review. So that's something that the province has built in to provide some flexibility to municipalities. And third-party applications, yes, could be submitted, but again, it's still a council decision as to whether those would get approved.
Follow-up?
Please, thank you. So a third party would be if Joe Blow Public wants to come and make that a change. That's where the third party is. The third party you're talking about.
That's correct.
Councillor Branderhorst.
Hi, thank you, Chair, again. And I was just wondering, specifically, if we are thinking about straightening out lot lines, can we bring back the urban boundary? So then more of the land stays agriculture, and push it that way if you want to have more of a cohesive look? Or is that locked in because of 2015's secondary plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's at the council's discretion, certainly, but the boundaries that are existing, I guess for one, are intended to accommodate growth, which is a mandate under the provincial planning statement. And furthermore, generally speaking, it may be more difficult to take a boundary back because in some cases property owners may have purchased property with the intention long-term of developing it. So usually it's not necessarily an easy thing or you know, in line with provincial policy to pull back an urban boundary. Municipalities are mandated to plan for growth.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard, did you have more points?
Yes, on this particular one. So we are looking then at 2.5. I guess it's C. So it says in identifying new settlement areas or allowing a settlement area boundary expansion. And then II2, if there is sufficient capacity in existing or planned infrastructure and public service facilities. So have we done that analysis to know, like, you know, how, because if there's no services there now, and then I'm assuming you checked the minimum distance. Then 6, whether impacts on the agriculture system are avoided, or where avoidance is not possible, minimized and mitigated to the extent feasible, determined through an agricultural impact assessment. So do those things still have to be done based on provincial guidance? Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, in this particular case,
That would not.
this is such a minor change in terms of planning. You know, we're not looking at, it's almost technical in nature, as I mentioned. In fact, in the county's official plan, there's even a policy that allows for minor boundary changes without making an official plan amendment. So the staff are looking at this as being such minor change that we weren't looking at doing an analysis on infrastructure, but obviously council is aware that we've got limited capacity, but they're looking at, you're obviously looking at what infrastructure improvements can be made. And similarly with the agricultural land, it's such a small section, you know, in terms of planning purposes. Keep in mind, as I say, this is about 9 acres of usable land if somebody did want to develop it. And, you know, that doesn't really accommodate that much in the way of housing to the village boundary.
Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I have, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 questions. One regarding that employment, 300 meters around an employment. So in effect, if there was an industry that came in, that would sterilize the land for 1,000 feet on each side of that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not necessarily. As I say, they look for you first, for the municipality to at least look at a 300 meters. But if mitigation measures can still accomplish protecting the industrial lands and protecting the other sensitive land uses that might be nearby, just to avoid that land use conflict, you know, there may be measures that could allow for, you know, a closer proximity of those industrial lands and say residential lands. Things like berms or vegetative buffers, things of that nature might be used to reduce noise or other factors that the province is intending municipalities to look at.
Yes, because my concern would be if there weren't the ways and means to accommodate that, it would be a tremendous burden to the adjoining landowners because they couldn't do anything with their land without these measures that you assure us that could happen. My other question was 2 houses on a rural lot. Is that 2 additional houses? So that means like a total of 3 on a rural lot. Is that correct? Just so I'm interpreting that properly.
Yes, that's correct, and that's new provincial policy requirement.
Right.
Yeah.
But no severance at all, is to stay on the same title, under the same title of the land?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. The policy allows for additional dwelling units, but doesn't envision them being severed. So if somebody wants to sever their property to allow for a new home, they need to make that choice up front, because otherwise the additional dwelling unit would be remaining with the primary dwelling on one lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor St. Jean.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Harrison, for raising that. So one of the things, I guess, to help me to better understand how that's going to apply to, let's say, an existing farm, I think that's where it's going to have the biggest impact. Somebody wants to build a secondary dwelling or provide additional dwelling on their farm lot. I'm having difficulty understanding how MDS is going to come into play there. Does it? Because you've already got an existing residential unit, you know, as we know, that 1 acre, right? And I can tell you it's pretty difficult to build include two houses in one and build a secondary one on a 1 acre lot. How is this going to come into play, and how is MDS going to affect that? Or is it going to, because it's already an existing situation?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, when they're looking at the additional dwelling units, I believe the policy speaks to having one new building, and then the second one can be within one of those units. So for instance, a basement apartment, for instance. So that would be what would be allowed. And yes, obviously with a 1 acre lot, there's less room to really accommodate additional dwelling units, but it may be possible. Certainly we would be looking at, as part of that process, confirming that there's an adequate water supply there. In terms of the minimum distance separation, I don't have the answer on that. I believe it would apply, but I'd have to check that to make sure.
Okay, because if I can follow up on that, because the challenge then becomes, you drive around anywhere in the county and you can find a house within even 100 feet of a barn that's housing animals. That's why I question how MDS is even going to have anything to do with this. And I did read the PPS, and I did go to the Planning Act to try and get an answer, and none of it is clear. It's as clear as a pile of manure when it comes to trying to understand how that's going to affect. Because, we know we can sever, farmers can sever lots for family and all that kind of stuff still. But if they don't want to sever, if they want to put an addition on the existing house and put an additional home on the 1 acre, it becomes really problematic. We already have challenges with people who have a slightly less than 3 acre parcel of land, and they have to jump through hoops. They have to get an EAS done, environmental study done, all of that, hydrogeological. And this is just me commenting on some of the provincial regulation here, doesn't make sense. It sounds like somebody sitting in an ivory tower looked out at the rural landscape and went, oh, well, we think this will work. So I'm struggling. I'm not blaming you or anything. I'm just struggling with how unclear this is and how unworkable it probably could be. Because I want to be able to allow farmers to have multi-generational housing on their property. I don't know how this is going to work. I guess that's my general comment. I know this is most of what we're dealing with tonight is provincial legislation coming back into alignment with all of that. That's one that just makes no sense whatsoever. And I know we have to do it, but not happy about it, I can tell you that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, certainly some municipalities, it might not be as big of an issue if they've got an adequate water supply, certainly. But yes, the intent of the policy change is certainly to try and foster development of new homes, given that the housing shortage that is out there, and especially for affordable units. So if somebody's got property and they can accommodate a relative, whether it's somebody that's young or an elderly relative, this would open up a potential anyway. But the other thing I was just thinking of in terms of the MDS question, certainly I believe our zoning bylaw has a requirement that additional dwelling units have to be in close proximity to the main dwelling. So it's not like you're going to create a situation where you're going to have, for instance, with a large parcel, you're not going to have a house in one location and then this additional dwelling unit be, well away. They're going to be clumped together to try and keep those residential uses close. Yes, so they're under the PPS. Yes, they do have to comply with minimum distance separation formula. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's where I think it's going to be really, really challenging.
This is a good point, because we have many thinking many, many grandfathered situations. We have many homes in the county who, if there was an application for that home today, wouldn't pass because MDS couldn't be met, and if they now want to add another dwelling, I think, so when your report comes back for a decision, we'd like to see some certainty about how MDS applies, certainly.
Yeah. It's always been my feeling that MDS was meant to ensure the viability and long-term viability and protect the farmer.
Yes.
From undue, from restrictions. And we've seen that numerous times, numerous comments. So it's, again, just a general statement. I think it's not well thought out on the province's side. They need to talk to some farmers and need to talk to some people in rural areas.
Thank you. Councilor Maynard.
Yeah, I'll ask my question and then I'll let you go. Because, so it says in agricultural areas, so that's either agricultural rural or agricultural prime, right? Because okay. And for the MDS, because we've seen it, right? If there's intervening houses, so as long as you're not, say you've got the farmhouse and you put the other house slightly further away, and it's then that would be a mitigation factor for compliance with MDS?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. The province does issue an MDS guidance document for municipal planners to consider, and I believe one of the MDS implementation guidelines does consider if there's intervening residential properties and making an allowance for another dwelling if there are, I think, 3 or 4
Right.
that are intervening between the barn and the proposed house.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that really they're trying to keep them all clustered together, because in point E of 4.2.3.11, it says limited scale and located within, attached, or close proximity to the principal dwelling or the farm building cluster. So the farm building cluster would be the barn, right? So as long as you're not going on the other side of the barn, closer than the house, that in general would be allowed, in either in a rural or a prime ag situation?
That's correct.
Okay, see, that makes it somewhat better, and probably more what we see historically anyways. Thank you.
Mr. Michaud.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. If you recall, probably about a couple of months ago, we had an application for a severance in Pleasant Bay area where we had quite a long discussion in terms of the house there was already a house in advance of where the severance was taking place. So exactly to your point, Councillor Maynard, indeed, if there's already an intervening building, if you put another building somewhere close by, you're not worsening the situation. So it would be supported then.
If there's nothing else, I can move on to public comments, unless you have something else, Councilor Maynard. One more?
Yeah, so under, well, I got as close again. We'll get new mics someday. 3.2.3, the municipality will develop an agricultural system based on provincial guidance. Maybe if you can just explain, it says the agricultural system is intended to maintain and enhance a geographically continuous agriculture area and support, foster long-term economic prosperity and capacity for an agri-food network. So isn't that kind of what we already have? Is it worded differently, or what's the change there?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So an agricultural system, actually, it's defined in the PPS, and we've included the definition to go into the official plan. But the agricultural system builds on what already exists in official plans. So currently, official plans have a prime agricultural area designated. Usually it includes lands that are predominantly Class 1, 2, or 3 soils under the Canada Land Inventory. But an agricultural system builds on that. So an agricultural system, I guess the way to explain it would be it would include those prime agricultural lands, but it might also include infrastructure or facilities that support agricultural business in the community. So for instance, if you have an abattoir or a cheese factory or a seed company that's supplying farms or making value-added products from the farm produce, then that's something that would be considered as part of an agricultural system. And as part of that system, you can also include some lands that are potentially in a rural designation as well. So that would help build on identifying what's important in terms of an agricultural use in the community, and so that's the intent of it there. That would be something that would be there would have to be work done to identify what is going to be in the agricultural system, and the methodology and the timing of that would have to be prepared, probably similar to the way the natural heritage system was developed here in the county, where a working group was put together with knowledge of the agricultural resources and put together a plan and then present it to be incorporated into the official plan, at council's consideration.
One more, if nobody else does.
Okay, I'll give you one more,
Yep.
Councillor Minner, and then we'll go to Councillor Pennell after that.
Okay. So under the employment areas, kind of back to what we were talking about separation between, so those areas then have to be designated. So if you have existing buildings and that have been used for either for institutional or for, as a garage or whatever, does that, once they cease, like what happens to those? How do we maintain those in our towns and hamlets and stuff? Those ones that aren't, they're not spewing, they don't have a stack on top of them, right? They're not generating a lot of traffic. These are, what I would call probably light manufacturing or an office or whatever, storage for.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, keep in mind that the policies are related to new employment areas. So existing, especially if it's an existing individual property or two, for instance, in one of the hamlets, or they aren't going to be affected by this. This policy is targeting new employment areas. So if the county were looking at identifying a larger area, a new industrial park, for instance, that's when the policy would be considered. So for instance, individual properties that maybe someone might want to rezone and say in one of the smaller communities, one of the hamlets, for instance, maybe Consacon or Caring Place, for instance, that's still a possibility. It's not an employment area as identified in the official plan.
Councillor Pennell, and then we'll try to wrap this up.
Okay, I guess my basic question is, I know that the provincial government has changed a lot of legislation, but when it comes to us, if we're talking about a whole bunch of changes, to me, it would make sense if we knew right off the bat, this has to be done exactly to what the province is saying. And all the others, and there's quite a few others in there, I think we should know whether it's a must or likable or dislikable. And I honestly believe we need that information when we get into our final decision.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I was actually thinking about that when I was preparing this information. And you'll notice that in the slide presentation, the items that were identified on slide 3, for instance, they all indicated that they were required under the PPS. And then the items on slide 4 were items that were required because they're in the Planning Act or in Ontario regulation, so they're required. The other items are at the discretion of council. And I think that was also identified in the
package.
in the either the notice or the draft bylaw that was put forward in the package. But certainly on the slides.
I would appreciate that because it's the ones that maybe we have a choice in that now might be the time to make a choice before we make a decision. So I would look forward to receiving that information.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. And of course, in the entire package, which is on the planning portal, each item is identified, whether it's as a result of the provincial policy statement or official regulation, or indeed if it's discretionary, something that planning staff is proposing to us. So when we do get to the final decision point on this, all that should be clear. Councillor Nyman.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, we didn't get a copy of your presentation, did we?
No, you didn't, but certainly I can make that clear in the final report when it comes back as a decision item, but certainly I could provide it to the committee members even ahead of time, yeah, for sure.
That would be useful.
The chair and to committee. The presentations as part of this meeting, the meeting agenda gets republished with the addendum, and this presentation would be attached. So within the next couple of days, you'll be able to go on the website and see it right there.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And related question, do we have, Scott, any idea when this will be coming back to us for decision? Or have we overburdened you with suggestions tonight to delay that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, depending on public input and the input of committee, if there aren't many changes, I'm anticipating that we could bring this back for the committee's consideration as a decision item in early March. I believe it's March 5th.
So the next meeting.
Yes. I know that there is on one of the issues that we were looking at addressing, for instance, the commercial fishery. I know there's one member of the public that has already reached out to me, and we've been working on some additional policy changes that they would like to see. And so we would certainly, highlight that in a final report. And I believe, the member of the public is actually here tonight that might speak to that as well. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Well, if the committee is willing, I'd like to move on to the public comments. And we do have Rosalind Adams with us. Rosalind, you've put up with all of this so far. Would you like to give us your comments?
Thanks. My name's Rosalind Adams. My topic is the proposed amendments to the official plan regarding the county commercial fishery. The first proposed amendment, sent to me by the planner on January 20th, consisted of a blurb about developing an agricultural system as required by the provincial planning statement, and a couple of lines calling a wide swath of marine businesses, including commercial fishing, agriculture related. Overall, I found these changes inadequate and nonsensical. They did not recognize the historical, cultural, ecological, food security, and economic value of the county's commercial fishery. They confused fishing with agriculture, and they attempted to cram a long list of sport fishing amenities that have nothing to do with commercial fishing or agriculture into the agricultural system. So I made suggestions to Planner Scott Porton based on the council meeting on the fishery a year and a half ago that got this whole ball rolling. He made an intense effort to follow up and recognize the value of the commercial fishery and protect it through the official plan. He came up with 6 proposals for amendments to the OP that really capture what we were seeking. The first proposal has to do with green design initiatives, and I think it is good to consider the commercial fishery here. There's still a bit of confusion about the infrastructure of the commercial versus the sport fishery. My impression is that the commercial fishery does not use private docks, marina fuel pumps, boat storage facilities, or marine commercial service and repairs. Rather, commercial fishers run out of government docks, buy fuel at the most economical source, store their own boats, and do their own service and repairs. But I'm not a fisher, and I think you need to know what the fishery infrastructure is, and only a commercial fisher is going to be able to tell you that. The next two proposals bring commercial fishing into the official plan under the shoreland designation. They recognize the presence of the fishery in the shoreline community and, to quote, ensure access to Lake Ontario and Bay of Quinte for the commercial fishery. What I want to say about this in a word is great. Proposals 4, 5, and 6 all recognize the value of and protect the future of the county commercial fishery in tandem with county agriculture. This is actually something we were asking for back in October of 2023, and the wording Mr. Portman has come up with is really strong and captures exactly what we were after, providing the fishery with the same protection and support that the official plan gives agriculture while recognizing the fishery as a distinct entity. I do not want to be seen in any way to be objecting to these amendments, but I do want to raise a point about reality here and the implications of the county having to create an agricultural system for the official plan following provincial guidelines. The mechanism the planners are using to incorporate proposals 4, 5, and 6 into the official plan is the inclusion of the commercial fishery in the new agricultural system. And I'm not sure this is going to work. The province has a clear, comprehensive definition of agriculture and of the required agricultural system, and they do not include commercial fishing. So I'm all for including the commercial fishery in the agricultural system. I think a strong case can be made for this. The historical, cultural, economic, environmental, and food security reasons for doing this are all clearly there, but you haven't made the case, and I don't think simply writing in commercial fishing alongside agriculture is going to do the trick. The scenario I can envision is a development comes up that threatens the commercial fishery or its infrastructure, and you all say, no, you can't do that. It's part of our protected agricultural system. And the developer says, what are you talking about? The provincial planning statement doesn't include commercial fishing in the agricultural system, and the county doesn't have a leg to stand on. So I think the council should reject the first brief amendments that I saw that included things with commercial fishing that have nothing to do with the agri-food system or its infrastructure, because I think leaving them in would work against the province accepting the commercial fishery in the agricultural system. I think the council should endorse all 6 of the planner's later amendments that I saw, but note that the ability to include the commercial fishery in the agricultural system must be sought and confirmed by the province.
Thank you, Rosalind, for your detailed analysis and your advocacy on this issue. Do members of the committee have any comment, any questions? Councillor Harrison.
I was just going to say, if there's any questions from council, I am a commercial fisherman and involved in this business, and I'm on the board of directors for the Ontario Association, and I would be more than happy to try to assist Rosalind in questions that might come forward regarding the local fishery.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, perhaps this question you could answer for me, and that is, if fishing does not fall under farming, how in the official plan would you see a recognition of that being made that can become a law that governs it in the future?
Okay, my answer to that is the fishery is included as a branch in Ministry of Agriculture and Food, under the food side of it, the commercial fishery is. And there's quite a few jurisdictions that come into play in this that are primarily federal or provincial, small craft harbors, different branches of the government, as well as the food sector. And generally speaking, if there is problems, as Rosalind set out, the biggest part of our fishery now is pretty mobile, mostly smaller boats on trailers. And the biggest single thing that the county can do to assist the commercial fishery is keeping boat launches in good shape, which there are some problems there. So the fishermen do have places to launch their boats and in the areas that they're used to. And the larger boats, which there aren't very many anymore, of course, we lost Point Traverse Harbor. You might as well say we're all familiar with that situation, which was a big blow to the fishery. In our case, we're having to run from our own harbor at Indian Point to the South Shore fishery, and it's a 4-hour run where we can't use Point Traverse now. Formerly, it was there and out, and we have no protection out there, no harbor to get into anymore. We, at our own expense, along with Tim McCormick and another chap out there, we have dredged the harbor, the entrance to the harbor, I might add. The harbor's a mess inside. At our own expense for quite a few years now, 3 or 4 years, and we still I can't accommodate my boat in there. At this point, the harbor's got so bad that Tim McCormick's boat takes up most of the room, and the rest of it's just a mud hole. And he has to run back and forth. When he left our harbor at Indian Point after fishing in the North Channel this fall and going to South Shore for whitefish, he was 9 hours just getting into the harbor, pushing through the crap in there to get his boat to the dock. And the harbor's in a terrible shape out there. And
Councillor Harrison, could we perhaps get back to questions for
certainly,
for
I'm trying to answer
appreciate that, but yeah.
main thing would be, I think, harbors and boat launches that could be of assistance to the fishery.
Are there any more questions for Rosalind Adams? Councillor Maynard.
So the boat launches, those would be particularly in the areas where there is still commercial fisheries, right? Is there now some areas now around the county where the licenses don't exist anymore? So you'd want those concentrated in the areas where there is active commercial fishing? The boat launches and any other infrastructure? That may be...
Yeah, I'm just I support the commercial fishery, but I'm not, I'm a farmer, so you gotta talk to...
Just so you know, Sam, this is not super sturdy anymore. This whole thing needs to be tightened. It wiggles like crazy, so...
Okay, that was odd. And it's an interesting point to mention, too, that at the beginnings of the history of European settlement in the county, when farmers weren't farming, they were fishing, and when they weren't fishing, they were farming. It was, especially in the South Shore, that was life. You did both. You had to do both to survive, as it happens. Any more questions for Rosalind? Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rosalind, for raising this. I think, this is all very important that we need to make sure we get it right. So that, I agree with everything that you've said. But you did raise a question that I have, not Mr. Chair, not for Rosalind, but for staff, with regards to to the harbor at Long Point. And the designation there, and I know I'm kind of wandering a little bit, should that not be designated as shoreland and force the federal government's hand?
It is outside the scope of this amendment.
It is outside, but it's kind of related.
I'm gonna, if we could finish with Rosalind, and then we can, there's
can come
can be
back to
another
that.
round for the committee.
Give Scott a chance
on
to
this.
think about his answer.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know Rosalind said she couldn't answer this, but Councillor Maynard brought up the question about the license. So maybe Councillor Harrison can explain to us. You have a fishing license, but so you're able to fish in a certain area, but so around the county, with the number of fishermen that we have, they can go anywhere in the county to fish. So I guess the point of the question is the boat launches, the importance of them is kind of all of them, because they use them all. Is that correct with the licenses?
I'll have to ask the chair to indulge a little history here.
As briefly as you can, Councillor Harrison.
There's actually, around the county, there's 4 quota zones that you have a license in that zone, or you have multiple licenses, whatever your history has been or what you've bought or et cetera. The bulk of the fishery these days is, the biggest single sector of it is the impounding gear fishery. And that's in the Bay of Quinte mainly, and down the North Channel. And that has evolved over a long time. I compare it quite often to the farmers that make maple syrup. They have a license. The bulk of their income comes in certain periods of the year when they fish pretty hard. The family comes home and helps them, and the industry carries on. It's a totally different situation than, say, Lake Erie, where they're the same principle, quota zones and license and quota. We have quota on every species almost. And the industry in Ontario, I just came back from our convention a little while ago, is not huge, but it supports a lot of small communities, which is what Rosalind's getting to. It's roughly $200 million a year in the province of Ontario. Bulk of it is on Lake Erie, and the rest is the other Great Lakes mainly. But back to the question, these fisheries, these impounding gear fisheries, are mobile. In other words, say if they're fishing in quota zone 4, they might want to launch it, say, Premier's Cove, or at the ferry, or across the bay. There's 2 launches, because there's fishermen, of course, over in Lennox as well, and the other places. But those boat launches cause problems with shifting water levels for not only the fishermen, but the anglers and the Ministry of Natural Resources. And I think you've all heard me around here quite a few times complaining about boat launches one place or another. So in order to help the industry, I would say that's the biggest single thing we're lacking is and then Long Point Harbor, of course, is an exceptional thing outside the thing. But that's pretty much the story.
I think this was a useful education, I hope, for planning staff too, as they look at potentially amending these actions in accordance with what Rosalind has suggested. Any more questions for Rosalind? No? Feeling that? Thank you. We need to receive the oral submissions, Madam Chair, or Madam Clerk.
Sorry, through to the chair. Yeah, if there's no more discussion, then yeah, just receive the oral submissions.
So can I have somebody move that the oral submissions pertaining to planning application
OPA-05-24
Perfect, thank
be
you.
received for
Be received. Mover and seconder, Councillor Nyman, Councillor Pennell, all in favor? Thank you. So if council has no more comments for staff on this amendment?
Mike,
Councillor St.
my
Jean
previous
does.
question for
Okay.
staff.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, in terms of the federal government's property, I don't see that the county has any jurisdiction over that. They've got ownership, and so they've got, you know, the deciding factor on how the land is going to be used, regardless of what county official plan might say. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's the situation. That probably isn't what people in the fishing industry would want to hear, but I think that's the situation.
Thank you. That's pretty much what I thought, but I'm never one to be afraid to throw darts at upper levels of government that, in my mind, are not doing their job or are not doing it well enough. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. On the fishery, so I see in the purpose and effects where it talks about the fishery, but the actual text, like when we get into the different numbers, could you just kind of direct me where, like, because I'm not seeing that detail, and perhaps I missed it, so I'm asking for
Point of order,
for guidance.
Mr. Chair. Did we not already go through this? Or I thought you'd ask, what's all the questions?
Yeah, we've completed the public comments. This is the last round of questions by committee.
Questions arising
before
from.
we close this.
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, in terms of policies related to the fishery, I think I could point to section 4.11, which is on page 12 of the draft bylaw. Also 4.4.1.2 of the draft bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Are a couple. But as the member of the public pointed out, we are looking at some other sections that look like we can provide some more policy direction there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if that's it for council, then I'm in a position to declare that the statutory public meeting on this matter has now concluded at 7:23 p.m. Brings us to 5.3, the draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and rezoning file 13T22503, OPA-03-22, and Z43-22 Fernbridge investments. And this is the one that requires a motion to defer, since we have a technical issue with the way it was published. I believe, Becky, you have the ability to put this up on the screen for us to look at.
Through the chair, is it okay if I just read it out loud?
That works for me. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
It's just long.
So the statutory public meeting for draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and rezoning file number 13-T-22-503, OPA-03-22, and Z43-22 for Fernbridge Investments Limited and Long Arrow Investments Limited, also known as County Road 28 Subdivision, south of 579 County Road 28, Ward 4, Ameliasburg, be deferred until such time as the requirements for giving notice pursuant to sections 21, 22, 34, and 51 of the Planning Act can be met.
Thank you. Mover and seconder for that, Councillor Nyman, Councillor Pennell. Councillor St. Jean.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, this is because there was no signage put up on the property? Is that the improper notice that we're talking about? And I'm thinking of the public that may be listening in.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. This is a sort of legacy file that's been around for a while. Well, it ended up being mine, I guess, Councillor. It was belonging to another planner who left the organization. This is during a time frame where we're down to 3 planners. So it sat for a little bit, and the applicant wasn't moving it forward, so it didn't get the attention that it would normally have gotten if we were at full complement. So now that we're at full complement, it's been given to the planner. This detail was missed, unfortunately. It's on us. We didn't get the sign made and have the applicant post the sign on the property. So it's unfortunate it happened. We regret it, and we'll be better for it.
But applicants, okay, just general statement, applicants know that they need to post on their property, so I'm not necessarily gonna say it was planning staff's fault. I think developers should know better.
But we provide the sign, so that's been the,
Yeah,
that's been
I
the
get it.
process.
Okay, just so the public knows, it was because there wasn't a sign put on the property notifying everyone in the area.
Thank you. That provides good clarity. And I would note too that this deferral, this does not constitute the statutory public meeting for this file. It will come back to us for statutory public meeting. So we'll take a vote on that deferral motion. All in favor? And that carries. So do we do 5.4, Madam Clerk?
We'll conclude, oh, sorry.
That the statutory public meetings, plural, held on February 5th, adjourn at,
7:27 PM?
yeah, mover and seconder. Councillor St. Jean, Mayor Ferguson, all in favor? Thank you. And there are no items for no comments from the audience because there are no items for consideration. I just need a motion to adjourn. Mayor Ferguson and Councillor Harrison, all in favor? That carries. At 7:27. Thank you all.